There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes that love isn't enough, when he understands that giving everything, being everything, sacrificing everything, still isn't enough to keep someone who has already decided to leave. You wake up one morning, and the space beside you is empty, not just physically, but emotionally. The texts stop coming. Calls become distant memories. The woman who once promised forever has become a stranger who walks past you like you never existed. This is the moment when most men break. They beg, they chase, they diminish themselves in pursuit of someone who has already moved on. They become shadows of who they once were, haunted by what they lost and desperate to reclaim it. There's another path. A path walked by philosophers and emperors, by men who understood that true power comes not from holding on to what slips away, but from becoming someone so transformed, so unreachable, that regret becomes inevitable. The Stoics knew this secret. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in his world, wrote in his Meditations about the necessity of detachment. Seneca spoke of the strength found in solitude. Epictetus taught that our reactions, not our circumstances, define us. These weren't just philosophical concepts to them. They were weapons forged in the fire of human suffering, tools designed to transform pain into power. When she leaves, when she discards what you offered, when she treats your love like it was disposable, the universe is presenting you with a choice. You can chase her shadow and lose yourself in the process, or you can embrace the ancient wisdom that turns abandonment into transformation. The Stoics understood that the greatest revenge isn't spoken, it's lived. It's becoming so magnificent, so unreachable that her absence becomes the catalyst for your greatest becoming. The first rule of Stoic transformation is, master the art of emotional detachment without bitterness. This isn't about becoming cold or heartless. It's about understanding what Epictetus meant when he said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. It's the pain you feel isn't from her absence. It's from your attachment to an outcome you cannot control. A Stoic doesn't deny his emotions, but he doesn't let them dictate his actions. When she stops responding to your messages, when she moves on as if you never mattered, the natural impulse is to react, to fight for her attention, to prove your worth, to make her see what she's losing. But this is precisely when you must do the opposite. You must become unreachable, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You delete her number not because you're angry, but because you understand that your energy is too valuable to waste on someone who doesn't reciprocate it. You stop checking her social media not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your own peace of mind. This detachment creates a vacuum. Where once there was pursuit, now there is silence. Where once there was availability, now there is mystery. And in this silence, something powerful happens. She begins to wonder. The man who once chased her is nowhere to be found. The phone that once buzzed with his messages is silent. The presence that once sought her approval has vanished. This isn't a game or a strategy. It's a fundamental shift in how you relate to the world. The second rule is to rebuild your inner fortress through disciplined self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind is everything. What you think, you become. When she's gone, when the nights are long and the silence is deafening, this is when you must become the architect of your own resurrection. Every morning becomes a battle won. Every decision becomes a choice between who you were and who you're becoming. You wake up before dawn, not because you have to, but because you choose to. You train your body until it becomes a weapon of discipline. You read books that expand your mind beyond the narrow confines of your pain. You learn new skills that make you more valuable, more interesting, more complete. This isn't about impressing her. This is about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to impress anyone because his presence speaks for itself. The hours you once spent thinking about her are now invested in thinking about your purpose. The energy you once poured into making her happy is now channeled into making yourself unstoppable. You begin to understand what Seneca meant when he said that every new day is a chance to become better than you were yesterday. Your pain becomes your fuel, your loneliness becomes your laboratory. Your heartbreak becomes your transformation. The third rule is to embrace the power of strategic withdrawal and disciplined silence. There's a reason why the most powerful men in history were often the quietest. They understood that words diminish power while actions amplify it. When she realizes you're no longer chasing, when she discovers that your attention is no longer freely given, when she finds that you've become genuinely unreachable, she'll try to test your resolve. She might send a casual text, a friendly message, a late-night call. She might appear at places where she knows you'll be. She might ask mutual friends about you. This is the moment when most men break. They interpret her breadcrumbs as genuine interest. They rush back into her orbit, grateful for any attention. But a Stoic knows better. He understands that this isn't about renewed interest. It's about control. It's about ensuring that her backup plan remains available. Your silence becomes your strength. Your unavailability becomes your power. You don't respond to her messages immediately, if at all. Don't change your plans to accommodate her sudden interest. Don't explain your absence or justify your transformation. You simply continue becoming the man you're meant to be, with or without her approval. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the recognition that your time and energy are finite resources that should be invested in those who truly value them. The fourth rule is to use solitude as your secret weapon for reinvention. Most men fear being alone. They rush into distractions, into rebound relationships, into anything that helps them avoid facing themselves. But the Stoics knew that solitude is where transformation happens. It's in the quiet moments, in the space between who you were and who you're becoming, that you discover your true power. You learn to enjoy your own company. You discover interests you never had time for when you were focused on her. You develop hobbies that make you more interesting, skills that make you more valuable, perspectives that make you more wise. You travel alone and discover that you're excellent company. You eat alone and learn to savor the experience. You spend evenings in quiet reflection, not dwelling on what you lost, but planning what you'll gain. This solitude isn't loneliness. It's freedom. It's the recognition that you don't need anyone else to complete you because you're already whole. It's the understanding that relationships should enhance your life, not define it. When she sees you months later, completely comfortable in your own skin, genuinely happy in your solitude, she realized that she didn't just lose a boyfriend. She lost someone who had learned to be complete without her. The fifth rule is to become irreplaceable through continuous transformation. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what we can control. Cannot control her feelings, her choices, or her actions, but you can control your response to them. You can control how you use this experience as fuel for your evolution. You can control whether you become bitter or better. You start businesses that reflect your passions. You develop skills that make you indispensable in your field. You build relationships that enrich your life. You create art, write stories, solve problems, make a difference. You become the kind of man who doesn't just exist in the world, but shapes it. You develop a presence that commands respect, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it through your actions. When she finally sees you again, she doesn't recognize the man she left behind. The person who once revolved around her orbit has become a sun in his own right. The man who once sought her approval has become someone whose approval others seek. The boy who once begged for her attention has become a man who is genuinely selective about where he invests his energy. This transformation isn't performed for her benefit. It's real, it's permanent, and it's irreversible. The sixth rule is to alchemize your pain into purpose. The Stoics understood that suffering is inevitable, but growth is optional. When she leaves, when she breaks your heart, when she makes you question your worth, you have a choice. You can let this pain define you, or you can let it refine you. You can become bitter, or you can become better. You can use it as an excuse to retreat from life, or you can use it as fuel to engage with life more fully. Every rejection becomes a redirection. Every closed door becomes an opportunity to find a better one. Every moment of loneliness becomes a chance to strengthen your relationship with yourself. You begin to understand that the universe didn't punish you by taking her away. Liberated. You too become someone you never could have been while you were focused on keeping her. You channel your pain into your work, your creativity, your contribution to the world. You become the kind of man who helps others navigate their own darkness because you've learned to navigate yours. You develop empathy without becoming a victim, strength without becoming hard, wisdom without becoming cynical. The pain that once threatened to destroy you becomes the foundation of your greatest strength. The seventh rule is to develop a magnetic presence that tracks without pursuing. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best way to take care of the future is to take care of the present moment. When you stop chasing her, when you stop trying to prove your worth, when you stop seeking external validation, something magical happens. You begin to attract naturally. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with quiet confidence. You listen more than you talk. You're genuinely interested in others because you're no longer obsessed with yourself. You develop the kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself because it's impossible to ignore. You become the kind of man that other men want to be around and that women naturally gravitate toward. This isn't about manipulation or strategy. It's about authentic transformation. When you're genuinely happy with yourself, when you're pursuing your purpose with passion, when you're living according to your values, regardless of who's watching, you become magnetic. You attract opportunities, friendships, and yes, romantic interest. Not because you're trying to, but because you've become the kind of person worth being around. The eighth rule is to embrace your worth without needing external validation. Seneca wrote that no one can hurt you without your permission. When she left, when she discarded what you offered, when she treated your love like it was worthless, she was expressing her inability to recognize value, not your lack of it. A Stoic understands that his worth isn't determined by how others treat him, but by how he treats himself. You stop seeking approval from others because you've learned to approve of yourself. Stop trying to prove your worth because you know your worth. You stop explaining yourself because you understand that those who matter will see your value without explanation, and those who don't see it aren't worth the explanation. You develop the kind of self-respect that doesn't need external. It's a validation because it's anchored in internal truth. When she sees you months later, completely comfortable in your own skin, genuinely confident in your abilities, radiating the kind of self-assurance that can't be faked, she realized that she didn't just lose a man who loved her. She lost a man who had learned to love himself. And that kind of man is irreplaceable. The ninth and final rule is to live in such a way that her regret is earned without a single word spoken. The greatest revenge isn't what you say, it's what you become. It's building a life so magnificent, so fulfilling, so authentic, that her absence becomes obviously irrelevant. It's becoming so happy, so successful, so complete that her presence or absence doesn't change your emotional state. You don't post about your success to make her jealous. You don't talk about your happiness to make her regret. You don't live your life as a response to her actions. You live your life as an expression of your values, your purpose, your authentic self. And in doing so, you become genuinely unreachable. Not because you're hiding, but because you're living on a different level. When she finally realizes what she lost, when she sees the man you've become, when she understands that you're no longer available at her convenience, the regret will be real. But by then, it won't matter to you. You'll have discovered something more valuable than her approval. You'll have discovered your own power. You'll have learned that the greatest love affair you can have is with the life you're building. It's the person you're becoming, the legacy you're creating. The Stoics knew that the only true security comes from within, the only lasting happiness comes from self-respect. The only real power comes from self-mastery. When she left, she was discarding someone who needed her. Instead, she was liberating someone who would learn he never needed anyone to complete him. She thought she was ending your story. Instead, she was beginning your transformation. Stoic doesn't beg, he doesn't chase. He doesn't prove his worth to those who can't see it. He simply becomes untouchable. He transforms quietly, completely, permanently. And when she finally looks back, he's no longer where she left him. He's not the man she discarded. He's become something greater, something she could never have imagined. Something she spent the rest of her life regretting she was too blind to see. But by then, he'll be too busy building his empire to notice her looking back.